I'm back with Jim Rogers, and we're talking about the financial state of the United States right now. And, Jim, I've heard that you've endorsed Ron Paul for presidency. Is that correct?
Well, I've certainly said in TV that he's the only one who seems to understand what's going on. And I've given money to Ron Paul. I've not given money to anybody else. He is the only one who has a clue what's happening in America right now, and he's been the only one for a while. He seems to be getting traction, and I hope he does. I would certainly vote for him if he gets the nomination.
Well,
I would not vote for the other. I would not vote for any of those other clowns, that's for sure. I'd vote the protest vote before I would vote for them.
Well, he's the only one I've noticed that's been talking about currency and about the bubbles. And the only other candidate I've heard talk about currency was Duncan Hunter, who wanted to make it a trade violation for the Chinese to peg their yuan to the dollar. So that's the only other candidate that I've even heard mention currency. But I've been following Ron Paul for decades, and I know that he's been warning us for years about the real estate bubble and the dangers of the government-subsidized loans through Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And do you agree with him that the chickens are coming home to roost with regard to the real estate bubble?
That's what you and I have been discussing here. Yes, of course it is. He's been exactly right. Again, none of the other clowns have had a clue what's going on. They're part of the problem rather than part of the solution. So, no, most of the things that Ron has said over the years have turned out to be right.
Well, what needs to be done about the credit bubble?
Well, you've got to pop it. It is being popped on its own accord right now. We've had the worst credit bubble we've had in American history, perhaps in world history. Never before in American history have people been able to buy a house with no money down. And in some cases, the builders would even front them money to help them buy a house. So this credit bubble has got a long way to go as far as cleaning out the system. You don't clean out a big credit bubble like we've had in 5 or 6 months. It usually takes several years to clean out a bubble like this, and this one will too. In my view, what they should have been doing, they should have been raising interest rates, the Federal Reserve. That's the way you go ahead and clean out the system. We've got an inflation problem. You raise interest rates, it might help with the inflation problem. You know, the Japanese tried this when they started having problems in the early 90s, and they kept putting on Band-Aids, and here it is 17 years later, and their stock market is still down 70%. That's 70% from where it was in 1990. Well, America seems to be doing the same thing. We're going to cut interest rates. We're going to try to prop things up. And in the end, it's going to make things much, much worse, much worse. Now, if you went ahead and raised interest rates and cleaned out the system and got the pain behind us, then perhaps we could go ahead and start over again. There are lots of safety nets in America to take care of people who, when there are recessions or when there are hard times. Trying to prolong it with a bunch of Band-Aids and printing a lot of money is just going to lead to many, many, many worse problems down the road. And if we went ahead and took our tried to take our medicine now, we might be better off down the road.
Well, with the subprime meltdown, instead the Fed has been injecting money into the system and claiming that that's going to help the homeowners who are at risk to lose their homes because of the problems with the mortgages. Who does this really help? Who really benefits? The homeowners?
It helps a few firms on Wall Street that perhaps will not lose money on all the loans that they've made. But most of the homeowners are not going to benefit from this because there's a huge glut of housing in America. Cutting the interest rates is not going to get rid of the glut of housing. It's not going to make house prices go up. It may save a few homeowners, but for the most part, the people who bought homes or were overextended shouldn't have been buying homes in the first place. As I said, never before in American history could you buy homes with no money down. And everybody, of course, was buying very low interest rate, getting low interest rate mortgages that have to be reset. Well, they're now being reset. And but even if he cuts interest rates another 0.5% or 1% or something, still many of these mortgages are going to be reset at higher rates. And many people who are underwater with their house prices now, where the prices have gone down so much that they don't have a profit anymore, are probably going to walk away from the mortgages anyway. So this is not going to help anybody except a few friends on Wall Street.
Well, and President Bush, I mean, one of the things that he touted during his administration was the fact that the number of homeowners, people who own their own homes, was raising as if this was something that should be celebrated, when really it was not a result of people earning the money and accumulating the wealth to buy houses, but just easy credit. Isn't that right?
Well, again, whatever happens, all of these are leading to further and further long-term problems. Politicians look for short-term solutions because they're not going to be around in the long term. Somebody else is going to be the politician. Short-term band-aids have never worked eventually, and I've got a 4-year-old, and I'm more worried about the 4-year-old than I am worried about the next election.
Well, yeah, and it seems to me that politicians like to manipulate the system and then demagogue about it, and the easy credit has been one way for them to do that.
It certainly has, and the politicians love to talk about how everybody can own a home, et cetera, et cetera. Well, you have to have economic reality. It's great for everybody to own their own home. I'm all for it, too. But I also am in favor of economic reality because eventually somebody has to pay all these bills.